truth. We also look for the good and praise it. So I also saw something on Facebook this week that said there was a demonstration of the Black Lives Matter movement, and across the street there was an All Lives Matter group that was demonstrating. And the leaders from both of those groups got together and started talking to each other, and then both groups came together. And they all started hugging each other and saying, we all live in Dallas, we have to get along with each other. And it was just so sweet. And then they prayed with each other. It was about, what do we have in common? What brings us together? We look for the things that bring us together, and we celebrate that. And, we look for what there is to celebrate. I mean, I got a Facebook post this week from Reverend Andriette Earle in the Heart and Soul Center of Truth in Oakland, California. And the post said, "You matter. Unless you multiply yourself times the speed of light squared, and then you energy." So we have to remember to look for something to bring us joy, something to lighten up. That saying by, and I've heard this attributed to many different authors, Goethe and several others, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. And so part of what we have is people who are taking everything to heart as their own. And that is not a bad thing, but how we express it is the thing. How are we taking what calls us in a direction that is positive and life-giving, and rather than destructive, rather than being centered in fear and resentment and judgment and hate? How do we shift to love and peace and goodness and mercy and compassion? How do we shift? And it is a practice. It is a practice. And the first practice is to be able to come to our own still center that Lori was talking about, being able to center ourselves and know that the peace that passes understanding is present right where we are. Jack Kornfield says in this book, from a peaceful center, we can respond instead of react. Unconscious reactions create problems. Considered responses bring peace. With a peaceful heart, whatever happens can be met with wisdom. He also says, let yourself breathe and trust. It is only by a courageous letting go that the heart becomes free. This is called the wisdom of insecurity. And then he quotes Helen Keller, who said, security is mostly superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do children as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. And then, this is a hard one. Peace requires us to surrender our illusion of control. We can love and care for others, but we cannot possess our children, lovers, family, or friends. We can assist them, pray for them, and wish them well. Yet in the end, their happiness and suffering depend on their thoughts and actions, not on our wishes. On their thoughts and actions, not on our wishes. And that's a hard one. We all want to make it better. We want to fix it. We want to help. But sometimes what is required is just to listen. I think this is one of the ways we can let go of the struggle, is to listen to one another. I love it when I'm in circle and we pass the talking stick so that everyone has a chance to speak or not speak, to choose whether to speak or not. But holding that stick there, the only one who can speak, there's no interrupting, there's no crosstalk, there's no trying to fix or mend, there's only opening ourselves to hear. And in order for the circle to really work, we have to practice something called kenosis. It's a Greek word that means we empty ourselves. We're not thinking about what we're going to say when it's our turn. We are only being open and listening to what is being said, being fully present to not only what is being said, but what is happening between the words. What is the feeling that's coming up that maybe isn't even being expressed by the words? Being fully and completely present. You know, I love how Spirit works. Little things come to me. I was emptying a box and I came across this little book, a little book of listening skills for the workplace. It was probably left over from when I was getting my master's in systems management. And in that, there is a story. And it's about a woman who was traveling with some healers to New Zealand. And they went to a sacred Maori community, the Polynesian inhabitants of New Zealand. They went to their community, and this woman spoke to the doctor in the community, and she said, "What kind of medicines do you use most of the time on the people in your community?" And he said, "We don't use medicine." Now, this is a physician. He said, "We don't use medicine." He said, whenever anyone got sick in any way, from a cold to cancer, they would take that person and put them in a circle, and the whole community would surround them, including the children. And they would all be sitting around, and the person would be in the middle, and then the doctor would ask them one question. The question was, "What is it that you are not saying? What is it that you are not saying?" And everyone would stay there, sometimes for days, listening for everything that that person had to say, everything that person needed to reveal that they were keeping to themselves. Everything being revealed to everyone, and holding that container for them. And the doctor said that they had a 98% healing rate. Listening is a powerful, powerful energy. There's another quote in the book that says, "Listening is a magnetic and strange thing, a creative force. When we are listened to, it creates us, makes us unfold and expand. Ideas actually begin to grow within us and come to life." So listening is a really important thing for us to be doing now. Listening to one another. We have so many places where we feel like we're divided. You know, whether it's between red states and blue states, and whether it's between African Americans and everybody else, or all minorities and white people, or whatever it is, you know, that there is something within us that wants to be heard. And if we can just be still and listen to one another, we may be open for the possibility of healing. It's also important for us to listen to the voice of Spirit that's within us, because there is an evolutionary impulsion that continually is evolving itself. The thing that created us, we call it the thing itself. The thing that created everything is everywhere in its creation. And it is continually evolving itself, expanding itself, expressing itself through its creation. And we are a part of that. Each of us has a part to play in that. And so we open in our practice of meditation and prayer, we open to listen to what is ours to do as part, what are we called to do as part of this evolutionary impulsion that wants to express more oneness, more love, more goodness, more peace, more compassion, more justice, more wholeness. And when we claim that, everything unlike it gets revealed for healing. So everything that is coming up, all of the stuff that is coming up is arising for healing. It's arising us to hear what is making this happen and how can we come together around it to heal. How can we hold the space for healing? In this month's Science of Mind magazine, there's an article by the Dalai Lama. It's actually a conversation with the Dalai Lama and Ernest Holmes. It's a fictitious conversation, of course, unless they're speaking from the beyond. But, you know, Ernest said the veil between the worlds was thin. Anyway, and then there's a talk about a book that has just coming out called A Force for Good. And it's about the Dalai Lama's vision for our world. And he talks about the antidote for negativity is to become a force for good. And just like it said in the Bible, you know, faith without works is dead. It's time to take action, to do something. One thing, each of us being more peaceful in a stressful situation. Each of us taking the time to respond rather than react. And he talked about the three commitments he's making. The first is to contribute to human happiness as best as he can. To contribute to human happiness best that he can. The second thing he's doing is to foster harmony and friendly relations between all of the religions. And because they all have messages of love and compassion. And so all of the religions need to stop fighting with each other and center on the love and compassion that they teach. And he also, his last commitment, his third commitment, is to preserve Tibetan Buddhist culture and the natural environment of Tibet. So that's his calling, and those are his commitments to action. In our movie on Friday, we watched Where to Invade Next, which is a wonderful movie by Michael Moore, where he goes around the world getting good ideas, most of which originated in the United States, and then other countries are practicing them, but we're not. It's very interesting. And so he does interview at one point a man whose son was killed in that attack in Norway. In 2011, there was a very extremist person who blew up a bomb in the center of town and then went out to a youth camp and shot 69 kids. And they caught him, and he was tried and sentenced to 21 years in prison, which is the maximum sentence in Norway is 21 years, but after the 21 years, it can be reviewed, and if they still feel that this person is a danger, they can keep him for 5-year increments from then on. But so he went to jail, and so Michael Moore, being the kind of guy he is, kept asking, you know, well, don't you want revenge on this guy? You know, don't you want him to get the death penalty? Don't you want to kill him because he killed your son? And he said, no, I don't want to lower myself to his level. I don't want to lower myself to acting from a place of revenge. That revenge stuff is not working, folks. You know, that eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Everybody ends up blind and toothless. And it hasn't worked. It's still not working, but we keep doing it. And you know the definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing, thinking you're going to have a different result. Wrong. So we need to shift. We need to change. We need to come up with new solutions. And a lot of what was shown in that movie showed different ways that different countries are dealing with things, like Portugal has decriminalized drugs, and now they're devoting all their funds to treatment rather than incarceration. And the drug usage is dropping. And feeding children in schools really nutritious and healthy food to teach them about good nutrition, as opposed to feeding them the cheapest thing we can buy, because that's what we do. And they also teach them, they're in France, so that, you know, they have a 3-course meal on China with water to drink, not soda. They don't have any vending machines in the school. So, you know, it's just looking at being open to different ideas, different things we can do. And it's very interesting. I happened to overhear this, you know, me listening to NPR. When I'm in the car, I'm always listening to NPR, and I heard this guy, his name was Steven Pinker. He's a professor in Harvard, and he said, he's written this book called The Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined. And what he is saying is that we are actually living in the most peaceful era of humankind. Now, it's hard for us to see that, but it's the historical perspective. When we raise up and take the long view, you know, we are not hanging people in the town square. We are not cutting off people's hands and, you know, torturing people. He talked about how we used to do the justice system and all of that involved. And that, you know, we used to have 30-year wars, 100-year wars. All these major nations would be fighting and fighting and fighting, and that is why they are trading and trading and trading, because when they trade, they don't fight, because they have mutual benefits for one another. And so, you know, it's interesting to take that kind of view when you see this doesn't feel like the most peaceful era, but really, in the long run, in the whole picture, it is. He says rapes are down 80% from 1970. That's a good thing. Violent crimes are down. That's a good thing. So we have to find the good and celebrate it wherever we can. In the early days, psychologists studied chimpanzees because they're very close to us in our genetic makeup, to see why human beings are violent. And so they were saying, yep, here, they're violent, so we're violent. But what this new professor, his name is Franz de Waal, has found is if you keep watching them, most of the time, the chimpanzees that were fighting with each other later on that day will reconcile with each other. They will hug and kiss each other. And the whole village, the whole tribe, the whole group will celebrate that. So it's not just about having the fight, it's about reconciling afterwards. And also he started looking for other things that we say are moral things that we think came from civilization. He said, look at the chimpanzees, look at the dolphins, look at these other beings, and they do things for others that are not in their own self-interest. They do these things that we think we invented through civilization and religion, but actually they're in our DNA. We came here with goodness and truth and mercy and peace and love and truth and justice. We arrived here with all of that, and we were trained out of it. So this is not about trying to get something new. It's about letting go of anything that's not true, that's not us. It's time for us to embrace that we are peace. We are good. We are merciful. We are loving. We speak truth. We speak truth. And we hold for justice. We stand for justice. We are a stand for justice. It's not about letting anything go. It's being who we are. It's declaring our vision of a world that works for everyone when we see a world of peace and harmony, enfranchisement and justice. That is from our organizational design model. We hold that vision. And what we do is we turn our complaints into requests. We turn our judgments to wonder. We hold in mind what we want, not what we don't want. We stop resisting what we don't want, and we picture what we do want, and we hold to what it is we want. So we declare our vision for that world of peace and harmony. And so I'm going to end with a prayer for world peace by Ernest Holmes. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof. I know there is but one mind, which is the mind of God, in which all people live and move and have their being. I know there is a divine pattern for humanity, and within this pattern, there is infinite harmony and peace, cooperation, unity, and mutual helpfulness. I know that the mind of man, being one with the mind of God, shall discover the method, the way, and the means best fitted to permit the flow of divine love between individuals and nations. Thus, harmony, peace, cooperation, unity, and mutual helpfulness will be experienced by all. I know there shall be a free interchange of ideas, of cultures, of spiritual concepts, of ethics, of educational systems, and of scientific discoveries, for all good belongs to all alike. I know that because the divine mind has created us all, we are bound together in one infinite and perfect unity. In bringing about world peace, I know that all people and all nations will remain individual, but unified for the common purpose of promoting peace, happiness, harmony, and prosperity. I know that deep within every person, the divine pattern of perfect peace is already implanted. I now declare that in each person and in leaders of thought everywhere, this divine pattern moves into action and form, to the end that all nations and all people shall live together in peace, harmony, and prosperity forever. So it is. All right. Let us do our affirmation for today. I open to the flow of divine good in my life. I open to the flow of divine good in my life. I open to the flow of divine good in my life. I open to the flow of divine good in my life. So it is.